and it just said, "Hi, I've come across your website. I think you'd be a great fit for a show called Aldi's Next Big Thing Season 2. If you go on Channel 4 and watch Season 1, like let us know whether you think you'd be like a good fit. And here's my phone number. Give me a ring this week if you can." And I was there like, "What?" We've been trading, I think, 4 weeks at this point. Like I'm like.
Welcome back to Small Business Voices Wales, the podcast that shines a light on small businesses, the kind that hold our communities together and the backbone of our economy. I'm Frank, your host.
And I'm Kim. We've got a special guest today, someone who takes bold risks and isn't afraid to shake things up. So we're delighted to have you on, Hannah. Hannah is the co-founder of Bowla Ltd, the startup behind the Bowla hat-shaped loaf that's bringing bread innovation to Wales and beyond. So welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
So for anyone that doesn't know what Bowla is all about, can you tell us what it is and what the company is all about?
Yes, of course I can. So I don't have them with me right now, but we did sell Bowla hat-shaped loaves of bread, and if you just imagine you take the middle out and you have a bread bowl with a bread roll and you put fillings and toppings and butter and you dunk it in, and it's obviously bread innovation and a street food item as well. That's what we've been using it for. And we were in Swansea Market for 2.5 years, but we've just left, and we'll get onto that later on. We have sort of big ambitions for the product. We want to see the Bowla hat-shaped loaf of bread be a UK-wide, at least, bread item alongside the baguette, the panini, the bagel, things like that. Bowla hat-shaped loaf of bread. So obviously called Bowla, a bowl with a roll. That's kind of our trademarks.
We're definitely looking forward to hearing a bit more about your future plans. But before we get into that, can you take us back to where Bowla started and just the journey that you've taken to the point that you're at today?
Yes, of course I can. So basically the Bowla hat-shaped loaf of bread, the Bowla, is my dad's idea, and it stemmed from an accident with a bread maker back in 2007. Back in 2007, for context, I was 7 years old, so I had no part in this at this point. So yeah, my dad was basically working away as a contractor engineer. He was up in the northeast of England at the time, and he basically was staying in a caravan while he was working away. And he bought a second-hand bread maker from a charity shop, which didn't have any instructions. And so he bought a bread mix, put it in, put way too much bread mix in. It just rose and rose and rose and rose and rose. He couldn't stop the cycle. He just let it play out how it was going to play out. And then he took it out, and the loaf that he baked resembled a top hat, a big hat. And he just thought, whatever, brought it into work the next day to share with his colleagues. And yeah, he had like a very unusual amount of interest around this loaf. And his manager was like, "What's that?" He's a Scottish man, I think. And he was like, "What's that?" And my dad is very quick-witted, very funny. He just kind of came up with this elaborate story of, like, it's a Welsh top hat loaf, and basically in the mining communities, the mother would bake this loaf, pull the centre out, fill it with Welsh lamb cowl, and all the children would share the bread and dip it in, which was a lie, but it was pretty believable. And then all of his like friends were like kind of just jumping in and adding to it, and be like, "Yeah, it's really popular," whatever, building this hype around this loaf. And then a year later, my dad was on the same rotation in the same power station, and his manager pulled him aside again and was like, "Oh, my parents drove around the coastline of Wales looking for the top hat loaf and they couldn't find it. Like, where is it?" And he just was like, "Oh no, like it's just in the really, really, really tiny mining communities, like really small, like not on the coast. Like, you know, it does exist, but it's just kind of like one of those things." And at that point then, him and his friend were kind of like, "Oh, maybe there's a market for this loaf. Like maybe there's something here." So then my dad kind of continued it on his own, on the side as like a passion project on the side of working obviously full time and like raising a small family and stuff. So whenever he was home then for years, he was baking bread constantly. He was welding bits of metal together to try and basically replicate a mould that would make a single serving version of the story that he told. So he wanted a single serving one that, you know, someone could have on their own. And the vision for him was like, you know, events, like large scale events, catering sporting events specifically. So yeah, he basically worked for about 10 years on and off, like trying to develop this mould. And then he took the first one to a bakery and they said, "We're not putting that in our oven. That is just welded metal. We cannot put that in our oven. Like, that's not safe." So then he went to an engineering firm and they did drawings, they did it all professionally. And then that same bakery actually did some for him. And that was the first time that he saw them like work. This whole time as well, he didn't tell anyone what it was. He didn't say what it was trying to be. He made everyone sign non-disclosure agreements. He was too scared to tell anyone what it was. and which made it harder, which actually made like the process even harder because he couldn't just say in words what he wanted. He was like trying to like, it was just a lot. And so then 2016, then I think once that was done, he filed for a patent because someone in the pub was like, you might be able to get a patent on this mould. So he filed for a patent and got trademarks and things like that, and then he shelved it, he just left it. So then fast forward to 2020, I was in the second year of my degree. I was in Bristol. I did my undergrad in Bristol Uni. I did a master's in Swansea, we'll get to that. So I was in my second year of uni. I came home over COVID for what I thought was going to be 2 weeks, and it ended up being 6 months. And during that time, we went for walks every single day for an hour every single day, and he was telling me like anecdotes about the things that he'd been through and like how he had this idea. And he was 60 at this point as well. Like he was like, I have no intention of ever starting a business. And he was kind of like hoping that one day that he could maybe sell the idea to a company. I was 20 at the time, was doing a degree in physics, which has nothing to do with baking at all. But I had been selling clothes online since I was 16, and like I think someone said to me the other day, actually on another podcast I was on, that physics and science is quite entrepreneurial in the sense it's experimental, and I hadn't thought of it that way. I thought it was fascinating. So I basically was like, I have no experience in the food industry. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't really want to continue doing physics necessarily. Why don't we do this? Why don't we give this a go? So then I finished my degree. I enrolled at Swansea Uni doing a course that was sort of entrepreneurial, but not. It was called Engineering, Leadership and Management. So it was like business management for engineering, but leadership and management is very transferable. And I worked with the enterprise team basically like from the start, and I did all of the pitches. I got mentoring. I worked on a business plan. I worked with Big Ideas Wales, Business Wales, to try and like figure out what we actually wanted to do. And then we were actually told that the best way to do it was to probably bake at home, which we couldn't do, and then go to events, pop-up events. We couldn't bake at home because there's 4 adults living in a house, and we just never would have been able to get the hygiene and stuff and whatever, with all people in and out and stuff. So we needed a bakery base. But my dad was 60, I was 20, he thought, right, why don't we get a bakery base that we can sell from as well? So then it was like, well, why don't we set up in Swansea Indoor Market, because you can bake there, you can sell there, there's the kind of fraternity element, is the community element, like there'll be a lot of help, there'll be the management, like it was all kind of like an inbuilt kind of business already. So we applied for a stall in Swansea Market, and we got it. It took 6 months to build, and then we launched in April 2023, and then it's just crazy from there, basically. Just all happened, everything happened.
Wow, that's really interesting. And from being 16, selling online, and all the way to setting up the business and setting up bakeries and building a team, leading a team. So what has that journey taught you? Do you have any lessons that you'd like to share for listeners?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think being open to feedback from customers, because basically when we opened in 2023 in our first shop, we were there for a year. I basically thought that you open a business and people just flood in. I had no idea. I didn't know what marketing was. I didn't know what PR was. I didn't know what any of the actual pillars of running a business were. I was quite naive, and to be honest, I think that was a huge advantage. Was the naivety of not knowing how much work it would actually be was probably one of the motivators why I started. So yeah, I think research is so important, because that isn't what happened when we opened. We had no customers for weeks, and it took weeks to build up even a small amount of customers. It took months to build up a regular sort of customer front. I think do as much research as possible, and don't expect just because you've built a business that people are going to buy from it, I guess would be the main thing, because that is the delusion that everyone kind of has, and just being sort of realistic about at the start it's not going to be easy, and it continues to not be easy. But things do evolve, things do naturally, you do just naturally also take on new things as you get more comfortable as well, I guess, yeah. So
you have to adapt. I think that's the journey of an entrepreneur. You stopped, you put yourself in a situation that you don't know about the outcome, but as soon as you just have to be ready to face the challenges and adapt to all the situation. I think that's what a lot of entrepreneurs have in common, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think even from you speaking, talking about coming from a physics background, you probably had even a different idea of what your future might look like when you went into uni, right?
100%.
But then you saw an opportunity and you took it, after, talking to your dad, etc., which I think that's the top quality, just being able to adapt. And like you said, COVID as well, that taught us so much, where we just thought, again, lockdown is just going to be a temporary thing. And then we now had to shift even the way of working, remote working, all of that happening. So I think, that's definitely an important quality. But I think another one is that persistence, which I've seen from your dad, obviously. Because you said from 2007, wasn't it? All the way till 2020, he was still working on that idea and just, he wasn't going to let her die. And I think that's such an important quality for other entrepreneurs to be having. Just you keep at it, and if you've got a good idea, it will actually materialize in the end.
Exactly. And the most important thing is to follow your dream. I think your dad had a dream. If you believe in it, you just have to work hard toward it. And eventually you will get there. And then that's solution driven. I think, as you said, you open a shop, you don't have customers. What do? You have to think, okay, what shall I do now to get customers to start coming in? And then that's, as an entrepreneur, like you're not a laid back person. You look at, okay, this is the situation right now. What should I do? And then you find the solution. So that's very inspiring.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And for you then, what sort of challenges would you say you faced during that journey? Because also, you were quite young, and I think you are definitely the face of the business more than your dad.
Yes, definitely.
So, what sort of challenges might you have faced during that whole time?
So the biggest thing that kind of happened, which was kind of a real defining moment, was we opened April 2023. We were trading. We had our first shop in Swansea Market. We actually moved shop a year after we opened. We physically moved 2 doors down to a bigger premises, and I basically, so after a year we sat down kind of as a family, and my sister was in between doing, I think she had a bit of time off on her PhD, and her partner had some time off as well. So what they did was they did a mini internship for the business, because I was struggling. I was doing everything myself. We didn't have the money for me to delegate at this point. I was really struggling. I was kind of really just downbeat, and I didn't know what to do. The sales were quite slow. But basically my sister and her partner did an internship for me. So she did the finances, she sorted out all the accounts, and then Danny did the social media. And what they did was a little project where they judged how much the social media was affecting the sales, which it was fundamentally the whole reason we had sales in the first place, is because I was so on it with social media. And so we did a little project, and Molly basically my sister found that we were making money basically everywhere except the store. So we were doing events, catering, we were doing outdoor markets, we had an online shop, we had delivery, Uber Eats, Just Eat, but our walk-ins were on the floor, and we had hardly any customers actually coming in. Well, not hardly any, but we had not enough customers coming in the shop and actually having that experience. So it was right, okay, so this shop that we're paying a couple hundred, £1,000 a month for, it's not performing. What do we do? But there's signs, there's glimmers showing people like it, and we have customers elsewhere. So our cash flow was coming from events, catering, even though we had a stall in Swansea Market. It made no sense. So we all sat down, and Danny, my sister's partner, was like, "Han, the shop's ugly. That's the reason why people aren't coming in. It's just not attracting people in at all." And that was really hard for me to hear. It was so hard for me to hear, because it was difficult. And so then she came to me with a proposal of a new shop layout, and then someone 2 doors down was leaving, a friend of mine was leaving, and her store was really nice. It was a little bit bigger, and I thought, I've got a vision here. We could put a wall up and have seats at the front, so there'd be people able to sit in. And I was bright yellow. I think when I started as well, I was shy, and I was not who I am today. So we painted the walls a really dark colour in the first store. We were kind of in the corner. I was kind of it was kind of a manifestation of shyness. Whereas the second one was no, this has to be bold, brave, confident, all of those things. So we convinced my dad. We got a few grants as well. I convinced the council to let me move 2 doors down. I think I went up against 6 other people who were applying for that store, but they chose me because I convinced them that I could do it. And then we spent 3 months building that new shop. basically from scratch, like ourselves. Like we ripped everything out, put everything back in. I had a few contractors do certain things, and it was beautiful and it was magnificent. But it was a huge risk because there was no evidence to say that. It was just like the evidence that we had it was. But yeah, sales basically doubled straight away and maintained for a very long time. So yeah, that was the biggest thing that happened. Like that was a risk in itself, like moving shops. Like they were, it could have just been we were in the wrong place. I do think that to an extent we probably weren't in the best place ever, but that's not the point. Like in that moment it worked, and that was really satisfying.
That's really good. I think you were able to actually accept the constructive criticism, because I know that as an entrepreneur, like sometimes when you've put a lot of effort into your idea and then you're kind of so attached to it, and sometimes it's very difficult to actually accept a constructive criticism to change, and a lot of people do find it difficult when they have even their logo. I've seen someone with a very, very ugly logo telling them, okay, you have to change that because that doesn't reflect your business, but they find it very difficult to change that. But it's good that you actually took that constructive criticism from your sister and changed that. That's really good. So I want to know, in terms of finances, was capital ever a challenge, a barrier?
So my dad had actually been saving since 2007. So yeah, he had a dream, as you said, and he was putting money aside like for years and years and years. He'd spent an awful lot on the patent, on the trademarks. Like he'd spent a lot of money by this point, but he knew like he was never going to put it forward. He was just going to like, maybe if the opportunity came, like maybe sell it, maybe not. But no, also he tried to sell it and no one wanted to buy it because it hadn't been proven. So the whole point of us going to Swansea Market was to prove the concept. And that was the whole point. We were only meant to do a year. They ended up doing 2.5 years because we didn't feel like we'd proven the concept until sort of now. But so capital, we had a budget. We had like maybe like, I think £10,000 that he was willing to spend, but we ended up getting £7,500 in grants. We ended up spending a little bit more than, we ended up spending like £17,000 on the stall. And then when we moved again, we spent more money again, but we'd already bought all the equipment, so at least it was that. It was just like the walls and the ceilings and like making it look nice, I guess, was another expense. But yeah, like it was. Yeah, like the grants were really, because I had £3,000 off the university when I did the big pitch.
Yeah. I
did that twice. The first time I did it, I wasn't anywhere near trading. It was just an idea still, so they gave me mentorship, and the mentor was fantastic. I'm still in contact with him now, 3-4 years later. So I still speak to him now. He's helped me through things recently. And then I did the pitch the second time 6 months later, and I was closer to trading, and they deemed it viable, so I had £3,000, which went a long way in that little store. Like it bought all the uniforms, mixers, like so many. The website, I think I put £1,000 towards the website, and then just Swansea's great for grants. Like Cardiff is not good for grants. Swansea is good for grants. Yeah.
So you mean like the council?
The council as well. Yeah, the council's good.
Okay. Yeah. And how did you find the process of getting the grant from the council?
Long and laborious, but it was worth it in the end, and they are really helpful.
Okay.
So I mean, fair enough, it is going to be a long process. You do have to prove that you're actually going to use what you've said you're using it for and stuff. But yeah, I would definitely advise going for it, because it gives you a bit of confidence as well that other people believe that it's worth giving you that money. I don't know, there's a bit of validation there as well.
Okay.
And also, as we know, finance is a big barrier for a lot of people, right? So if you can get a grant, I think, that's something that goes really a long way. I wanted to ask a little bit more about working with family, because obviously it's your dad, and you've mentioned your sister, your, all of these people, which are family relations, right? For you, how's that been? And since you're obviously in the forefront of the business, having to also work with them, but also manage them at the same time, as well as manage personal relationships. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so interesting dynamic actually working with family. I think in general, it's definitely pulled us together more as a family. So for the first, 2 years, first 2 years, plus a year that I was at Swansea before that, so 3 years, I was living at home. And so thankfully my dad continued working away periodically. So what would happen was he sort of works away for 12 weeks, comes back for 4 weeks, goes away for 6 weeks, comes back for another few weeks. But when we were together, when he was home for those weeks and I come home, like that was all we would talk about. In a nice way, it was really good because it was like he was really keeping me on track and really keeping me motivated because like I was feeding off a lot of his passion and a lot of his vision. So yeah, it brought us together. I mean, obviously I lived at home for 3 years, which wasn't my plan. As you said before, like my life, like I think the reason why I even stepped into the business full stop was because my life had already changed so much in the COVID time that I could envision it changing again. Because like what I was going to do was, I was in Bristol, I was going to stay probably in England, I'd have probably maybe gone to London, worked in a job, whatever, in a good job, like basically all my friends did. None of them have done this. So yeah, when I moved home then it was for a reason as well, which kind of made it easier in a way. Obviously there were disagreements mainly with me and my sister because obviously she's in it to an extent but not fully. So like from my point of view, this is my whole life, whereas she's kind of seeing things, not seeing the full picture and then trying to advise me. So I find that really difficult because she was also living at home for a few years too. But then now that like she moved out, I moved out as well. It means that I do get a bit more time to not think about it. And obviously we've closed the shop now as well. So like that's kind of like it's a nice sort of intermediate piece I'm in now. But yeah, generally speaking, I think it has brought us closer together because like, yeah, it has sort of gelled us together really.
And would you say like entrepreneurship is a lifestyle? Would you agree to that?
Yeah, it's definitely like a mindset. I think it's not for everyone. I don't like, I've never had a job, so I don't know. Like, I don't know what I prefer, but I think I need to be passionate about what I'm doing. Like that, I think that's one thing I've learned. I forgot my last. Sorry, what were you asking?
Is entrepreneurship is a lifestyle for you?
Yeah, it definitely is because, like, obviously, yeah, you don't switch off necessarily from it, and like it can be overwhelming. Like, there's been periods where I've had so many opportunities that I've been overwhelmed, and periods where I've had no opportunities and I've been overwhelmed by that as well. Like I think there's such a thing as not being busy enough, in my opinion. And then also being too busy and like just trying to manage that and like trying to manage, because you're not managed by anyone else. There's no one kind of above you necessarily like holding you accountable. And yeah, it was only when I took on staff then I was like, oh, I'm being held accountable now by the people that I'm managing and like they're dependent on me to like lead. It was just, yeah, it's an interesting one. It's just a very good experience, I think.
And you do get some exciting stuff. I was like going through your Instagram and then I saw that you've been on national TV Channel 4 with the program the next big thing, right? Yeah, can you tell us about that experience? How did you get into that?
This is funny. This is a good story. So I had applied, I was applying to award ceremonies. I didn't know what marketing was at the beginning, I didn't know what PR was, I had no idea what they were, but I was like, how do people learn about you? How do you earn your stripes? And one of the things that I wanted to do was apply to awards because like, I don't know, I think I was 22, I always say like being in my 20s is kind of been me treating myself like a child, put myself in for awards and things like that, like as you would with a child. So that's kind of the thing. But I applied for the Great British Entrepreneur Awards right when we started trading. I had no reason to apply at all. I just did. I was just like, just spent an evening doing that, whatever. And then a couple of weeks later, I had an email through saying that I was a finalist and that they wanted £350 off me for a ticket. And I was like, that's a scam. And I thought it was a scam. So I was like, no. So I just ignored that email, whatever. And then a few weeks later, unrelated, I was literally in bed at 8 p.m, tired as you are as an entrepreneur. And my phone went off, and I don't normally check my phone, but I just thought I'm going to check my phone. And it was an email from a producer from Channel 4, and it just said, hi, I've come across your website. I think you'd be a great fit for a show called Aldi's Next Big Thing Season 2. If you go on Channel 4 and watch Season 1, like let us know whether you think you'd be like a good fit, and here's my phone number, give me a ring this week if you can. And I was there like, what? We've been trading, I think, 4 weeks at this point. Like, I'm like, I think we had less than 100 customers, like less than 50 customers even.
Like, is this real?
And I was like, there's no way. And then one of my friends works in film, so I was like, can you check this person's real? And she went on like, you can like Google like producers, can't you, or whatever. And she was like, yeah, no, so she's a producer for Channel 4, like this is real. So I watched an episode that night. I switched over from Bake Off to Aldi's Next Big Thing, and I watched an episode and I was like, oh my god, this could be such a good opportunity. So it's basically like, the show is kind of like, it's a mix between Dragon's Den and Bake Off, where you pitch to the head of buying for Aldi, and then they basically, it's like they do a taste test and all this stuff, and then the winner is like listed in Aldi. It's like for small businesses, it's their incentive to help small businesses. So yeah, I called them the next day. I called Alana the next day, and she was like, yeah, I'm really excited. Like, she just asked me some questions, filled out the form for me, put it through. The deadline had actually closed as well. Like all the applications were already done. And then, so I went through the motions. I then had like an hour and a half audit with Aldi on the phone with my tiny shop that was never going to be able to supply Aldi. I don't know why they even bothered. I had to fill in like loads and loads and loads of paperwork by the end of the week. Like, it was just a lot. And then I got accepted a few weeks later, and I was like, and at the end I just went, how did you like learn about us? Like, where did you? And she said, I was scrolling through the Great British Entrepreneur Awards finalists, and I saw your name and logo, liked your logo, clicked on the website, and read your story, and that's how that happened. And I was like, buying a ticket for the Great British Entrepreneur Awards. I bought a ticket then. But I thought it was a scam. So I was like, buying a ticket, you've got my ticket. So yeah, I went there as well, and I sat next to some Dragon's Den winners as well. I was talking to them and stuff, and that was really inspiring. But yeah, so then when was that? That was a few months later. Then we filmed it, and then it was aired 9 months later. So that was on the same week as our year anniversary. It was because I couldn't talk about it either. So we filmed it July 2023, and it was broadcasted April 2024. I couldn't talk about it. I wasn't allowed to talk about it. I'd signed a contract saying I couldn't talk about it to anyone. So only my very, very close friends and family knew about it. I don't think I was meant to tell them. I couldn't post it on social media or anything like that. And it was like, and I was so excited for that. And actually, this is interesting, the day after it was shown, because we were only on there for about 5 minutes, like we'd done 9 hours of filming, like we'd been there from 6 a.m. till like 5 p.m, and we were on for 5 minutes. We kind of built it up as this thing that was going to like revolutionize the business. It was going to be like the business is going to take off the back of this, like this is what's going to happen. Then that happened, and it didn't, because we were only on there for about 5 minutes, and what they showed was actually kind of confusing, I would have said to the audience, and that was a huge like grief and loss, because it was like this thing that I built up so much in my head, was so excited for, like didn't go the way I wanted it to go. Then a few days after that, we didn't have more customers from it necessarily. I built an online shop for it, because I knew that it was going to be nationwide, so I built an online shop. We had a few customers on the online shop, and then that's when Danny said to me, on his girlfriend, she went, the store's ugly, that's why you don't have customers. And then that's what happened. So like, it was like, that was meant to be the thing that made us take off, and it wasn't, but it was the thing that made me realise that things weren't right, because like, if us being on national TV isn't going to make us get more customers. I mean, it did, like naturally the next few days it did, but it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, and it was obviously like a huge disappointment. But like, that also, that humbled me as well, because I was just like, you can't rely on things like that to like, you know, for your business to take off. Like it isn't as simple as that. So
what do you think that was though, in terms of, because I feel like in terms of TV shows, especially production, I feel like I've heard a lot about, especially you go into something, they come to you, etc. The way they choose to portray you, journalists as well.
Yes,
sometimes you have interviews, right? Yeah. Sometimes the way they portray you is really not probably in the best light, right? So I think for me, part of that is like maybe not leaving it into someone else's hands, but also I think a lot of things in terms of publicity and marketing, it's a bit unpredictable. Like fine, there's trends, there's all this data that might be out there, but sometimes, especially now even with places like TikTok, I feel like we've learned that things are just maybe not what you might think is the usual way that they're gonna go, right?
Yeah, that was like a humbling experience for me personally, because like, I wasn't like, it was just hard, because obviously, yeah, like you say, like I was built up so much. Obviously, we didn't win the competition. I knew that on the day, like we didn't win it. But it was the way, I mean, the worst case scenario was that they were going to make us look silly. That was my fear. They didn't make us look silly, thankfully, because like obviously Bowla should have been like that. They could have been like, oh, this is like, you know, but they didn't. They were very nice about it. What I was disappointed with was that we had such a lovely conversation, like the buyer and the hosts and me and my dad had a lovely conversation, but they cut out all of it, and they only showed the part where it was like, they didn't, like my pitch was a minute long, 60 seconds long. It was such a good pitch. I practiced it all night, I couldn't sleep, and they cut it all out. They literally, like one line from my pitch was in there, and then the rest was just them being like, no, sorry. And then, but thankfully, like, there was one bit they're like, oh, it's nice, and I was like, it was like there's so much good stuff they could have included and they just didn't. They just chose not to. Like, and if they just added like 30 more seconds in, it would have really helped the business, but they just decided not to. And I guess it just to fit their narrative, I guess. Like, yeah, so that was, again, like a learning experience. Like, it could have gone worse. It could have been, they could have made us look silly. They could have, like, whatever, but they didn't. And I was grateful for that, at least.
Wow. And they didn't share with you any contents with...
Yes, that you could have used
for social media.
Not really. They sent some photos. But I've seen other people. I've seen another company similar use it. But I think they've extracted it themselves. But no, they didn't really. No.
But that should have been like maybe behind the scenes that you should have shared. I think that would have helped you. But what I'm very interested in is to know, like, what was the feedback? Why they couldn't take
obviously
your product into put them into the shelves.
So they thought the idea was cool and quirky, and they thought the bread was nice and all this stuff and the fillings and all that. But I think, like, to be in a supermarket, I think you need some traction. I think you need to be known about. And obviously, we had been trading 12 weeks when we were filming this.
Yeah.
We'd had probably less than 200 customers by this point. Like, it was like, you are very new. You have no means of production. You have no idea what you're doing. Well, I shouldn't say that, but it was like that was the reality was that we had been trading 12 weeks with a novel idea that no one knew about, and that was why, like, it wouldn't have worked. And there were obviously other food things there that were more well known and were more aligned with what they were looking for. And obviously the script was written before we'd even gotten in there, so they knew who they were accepting it. They knew who'd won before we'd even walked in the room. Do you know what I mean? So it was like, yeah, it's kind of like reality TV, and that's something you don't realize either. Is that, like, and they would retake what they're saying multiple times. So, like, you'd say what you were going to say. You had one shot, you had one chance to do it right, but then if they stood in the wrong angle and they're giving feedback, they've got to stand at a different angle. You give feedback again and, like, say the exact same thing again. So yeah, it was very, like, that was an experience as well to realize how, like, staged it was, like, but yeah, no, it was still a great experience. Like, took a lot from it, and it's still, like, we were on TV, like, that's still something to talk about. So
that's really unfortunate. I think my point I was making in the previous podcast is, like, how reality TV now, it's sometimes giving the wrong example of the kind of entrepreneur, as you said, is staged behind the scene, that they know already who's going to win. And then someone who is an aspiring entrepreneur would like to become an entrepreneur, thinking that, I have to go on TV to be successful, then that's the wrong inspiration. Because if I remember watching Aldi's Next Big Thing, I thought, any entrepreneur at any stage, because they were showing some people who never ran a business on a bigger scale. They've been doing that from their kitchen at home. And then they told them they will be helped. They will try it. They will go to a manufacturer. They will try to make it on a bigger scale. And that they would only judge the product there. But then they can help the business
it was
scale
that.
up.
Like, I think it was that, but it was like, I think for us it was like, it wasn't worth the effort that it would have been. And our main target in the future was events, and then eventually maybe supermarkets in the future. But yeah, there was that as well. I think they were examples of, like, because obviously you have to send your product in weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks before, so that wasn't necessarily the first time they were trying it. But I think they, so they all, like, I think, like, obviously the plans were laid out kind of before anyway, and it was like, obviously maybe the entrepreneur wouldn't necessarily know that was their plan, but if they were to accept it, that's what their plan would be. I think it was all kind of lined up quite nicely, and it's all filmed at different times as well. It's all stuff you just don't really think about if you're not in that industry. It's wild, but
also, I think sometimes any promotion, I mean, obviously, like you said, thank God they didn't really look silly or anything, but I think any promotion or any exposure for your brand that you can get is positive, isn't it? Because it's just that many more people that probably didn't know about the brand before that now do. All right. So I think that's still a good thing. And like you say, like, you probably learned a lot from just having to go through that, even the preparation, just even the mental and emotional prep for it, I'm sure was quite useful for you as well. We get a lot of interest really from entrepreneurs that are keen on opening up shops, to trade on the high street, whether it be food businesses or just other retail premises. So there is a lot of aspiration towards that. but I think sometimes the journey feels a bit unclear for a lot of people. So, I mean, you've gone through that whole thing from start to finish. So do you have anything to share around what people need to consider if they're thinking of opening up a high street shop?
Yes, 100%. There are an awful lot of startup costs associated with having a brick and mortar in-person shop, particularly compared to someone who's just online. I think so if you're going to open a shop, like a shop is a physical manifestation of your brand and of your like personality and the personality you want in the brand. So consider that. I think do a lot of research on how much it actually costs to build a shop. Obviously, in an ideal world, you go into a shop that already is fitted out with a lot of the stuff that you'd like. But in the case that I had to do it all from scratch and rip out walls, rip out the floor. You know, it was a lot of actual physical work. And if I'm not a tradesperson, and I don't even have tradespeople in my family. A lot of people have tradespeople in their family, so they got a lot of the labour for free. I did not. It was hard.
So did you do that just by you guys, like DIY, or did you bring in?
We brought in for the plumbing and the electricals and some of the building work. I outsourced it, but so for example, we took up 3 layers of floor. In the market, people were just putting floor upon floor upon floor, and it was bumpy and it was a nightmare. And I had a floor person come in because I wanted them to just put another floor down on top, and they were just we're not doing it. And no one will do that. There's fire. So I had to pull up carpet. I had to smash through concrete. And I had to put this solution down to level it before I could have a contractor, because that was going to save me hundreds and hundreds of pounds, because getting them to do that. So me, my sister, and my boyfriend were just smashing up concrete for 3 days. And it's just things like that. I just would never have thought of that before. But it was lovely. It was wholesome. But it was also that's 3 days of my life I'm never getting back. But that's fine. And we had goggles on. My boyfriend's uncle gave us a thing to drill the floor. So then what else? Pretty much the things we did was paint the floor, decorate, put a few minor things up. I was too scared because this one I wanted to get right, so I did spend the money on it, and I did get people outside in. It takes a lot longer than you think it's going to take. You set a time, it doesn't take that. It takes longer. It takes double it, just double it. If you think it's going to take... I was saying, when we moved, I was saying, don't worry, we'll only be closed for 3 weeks. It'll take us 3 weeks. It took 3 months to open the new shop. It was...
I mean, it's the same with us. We said it's going to take what? It was supposed to be 12 weeks. It was 6 months.
Yeah.
So, with construction, I think, that's good sound advice.
And reality is always 2 different things. Yeah. You just need to adapt.
Back to that. Exactly. There's a theme.
Exactly.
And not... Obviously, you have to balance having a goal and being okay with just letting the goal go and adapting the goal, which is really hard. Obviously, specifically in Swansea Market, there are rules. You couldn't do any loud work between the trading hours of 8 and 5 p.m. So any building work has to be done between 5 a.m. and 8 a.m. and then 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. So that is what took so long, because I got stopped quite a few times. The manager kicks out a few of mine because they just they wouldn't listen to that. The tradesmen wouldn't listen to that because they were that is insane. Let's just get this done.
Yes.
We could do this in 2 days rather than a week and a half doing it in that. So a lot of the time they just wouldn't even listen to me. They wouldn't, and then the managers had to throw them out. That happened a few times. It's so bad. But I was and they just apologising to everyone around. They will not listen to me. But they would have. But they just were this is an error.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it just physically doesn't make sense. So there's that as well. But that's a very specific issue. So cost, time, it's a huge commitment as well. In the market, in Swansea Market, thankfully, one of the huge things that appealed to me was the fact that we could leave within 28 days. That's not common. Normally you sign a lease for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever. We signed a license, which meant that we were paying on a monthly basis, and once I handed my notice in, I could leave within 28 days, and then pay the 28 days rent. Whereas other people are sort of tied up in contracts. It's a huge commitment, so consider that, and only do it if you are absolutely passionate, unless you have a pop-up setting. I know pop-up Wales and stuff that you can have smaller, that's a great way of testing whether you actually want a storefront, because there's a lot involved. And obviously if you're going to do it all yourself, that's fine if it's going to be your full-time job, but just consider that you've also got to do the marketing and everything else, and consider what you want to outsource and stuff. I think if I were to do it again, if I were to do it again, if I were to open a food business again, I would probably go into business with someone who is completely passionate about the hands-on food side, because I think that's what I learned, is that I'm not fully passionate about the hands-on food side the way that others are, and therefore I couldn't really compete with that. And it's not, we'll get onto this, but so there's that, like, it has to be your passion, it has to be a commitment, you have to save for it, you need support ideally from family and friends. You don't need it, but it's ideal if you can have it. And yeah, probably set up somewhere where you grew up, because then you've got friends and family that are around you and can come in at any time and can keep you company. Because there were times where I was quite lonely in that stall, particularly in the beginning, if I didn't have any customers, but I also didn't have many friends in Swansea, and a lot of them had full-time jobs and stuff, and I just couldn't really, that was a hard part for me, which probably wouldn't apply to many other people, but if it does, it does.
Yeah, I think, as they say, like, being an entrepreneur is a lonely journey. And I can see like how you've put a lot of effort, time, and into the business and money as well.
Yeah.
And it must have been hard to close down. So what happened?
Yeah. So yeah, this is interesting. So when we launched in Swansea Market, it was meant to be a 12-month exercise of proving the concept. We were meant to do make as much physical noise as possible. Like, that was kind of the point. It was like, get as many people to know about this thing as possible, and that'll give us the best kind of, it set us up in a good way. So then what ended up happening was we weren't making enough sales in the shop. I had fallen into events catering completely by accident when my boyfriend's mum, who ran an accounting firm in Cardiff, here's, X amount of pound per head, come and cater this event. I went and catered for 50 people on my own, on my own, first ever one. And yeah, I put that on LinkedIn, just saying, really proud of myself, I've catered this event. And then I had 3 other people who wanted events catering done, corporates. And then I looked into pricing. So our cash flow ended up being stabilised by the events catering side. What was I saying then? Sorry. So yeah, that after 12 months, what I realised was that we didn't have enough actual customers, day-to-day customers, and we just weren't satisfied with whether we'd proven it or not. Because obviously events catering, that's fine, because you only have to convince one person with a credit card to pay, with a corporate credit card to pay for 120 people or whatever. Whereas in the shop, it's so much harder to convince one person to part with their money, whereas in a corporate environment, it just wasn't. So we weren't satisfied with the amount of sales, and so we knew we could do better. So we stayed another year, and ended up being a year and a half. I took on straight away, sales doubled. I had demand for events even more so. I was doing an event for 300 people in Swansea in last November, and I was like, I can't do this on my own. So I took on my first part-time member of staff, and I said, right, I'm going to give this a year, so I'm going to put you on a casual contract just for a year, see how this goes. And it was going really well. I was going to networking events, and then in December last year, I decided that I was ready. I think we'd proven the concept. I was ready to start looking into events catering on a larger scale and outsourcing all the baking to a large craft bakery that supplies stadiums, and then getting fill-ins, locally sourced fill-ins, and trying to develop a business model on a larger scale. That's what I wanted to do. And then in February we had several people do TikToks on us that went viral. So February we were selling out every single day. Like January was the quietest month we'd had. February was the busiest month we'd had. I was also doing a project with Swansea Uni with some of the students. They were doing some TikToks for us as well. And I also started a job with Welsh Ice, facilitating business boot camps on a freelance basis. So I was a very busy person in February, and it was just non-stop, just constantly, couldn't keep them in. We were having to stay on way later to clean up because it was just so messy. And my uncle was baking every single day rather than, full capacity every single day. And it was wild. And then March happened and it slowed down a little bit. It just slowed down naturally because, the hype kind of went. And I burnt out quite badly, in March. There was a week where I couldn't get out of bed. I had to just take a week off and I couldn't get out of bed at all. I couldn't move at all. And then April and May were really slow because those are slow months in the market. The market has quite busy months and has slow months. And that's just it. You kind of can fight through it. But yeah, so I sort of burnt out, and then I couldn't seem to find myself to get back up to where I normally was. I just couldn't find it in me to fight the way that I fought before when it was quiet, when it's slowing down. And then so May, June, a couple of other things happened. And I remembered, I guess I'd forgotten that the whole point of being in Swansea Market and training in Swansea Market was that it was meant to be a trial. That was the whole point of it. I'd lost sight of that, and I took on a second member of staff in February to, like, again, give you a year, let's see what happens. And I realised, I was like, oh, this is actually, because I was also trying to get meetings for stadiums. I had meetings with like the head chef at Swansea Stadium and Principality Stadium. Like, I was trying to do all this other stuff whilst trying to run a shop. And I just realised that, like, there's a big picture that I'm not actually able to achieve because I'm so focused on this shop, which was never really the point. And it was really hard. So as soon as I kind of realised, it was in June then, we closed in August. So in June, I basically sat my staff down and I said, I'm not feeling this at all anymore. Like, I'm not enjoying this anymore. I just want to give you as much like notice as possible. Like, we won't be running until the end of the year. We might go to the end of the year, we might not. But I'm not renewing your contract. So, like, please just start looking for a job now. And it was really hard, but I'm so glad I did it, because it was like, you know, like some places just close down and go goodbye. And I said, I'll help you however I can, like find new jobs and things like that. So I did. I even sent messages to different cafes and pubs and whatever. And they were just like, thank you for telling us, blah, blah, blah. But obviously they were disappointed because I think they didn't quite like working there and stuff. And I was even trying to find like new jobs in the market, but I think like you have to be the exact right personality, and like they were great for us and maybe not for other people in the market. So yeah, and then July was just pretty slow. And then August, I was just like, I'm going to take a few weeks off. So I just said, guys, we're closed for a few weeks. I just don't want to do this anymore. And then halfway through August, I called my dad, and he was just like, because he had been subsidising when we weren't making enough money to pay the staff, he was paying them as well. So he's working full time and trying to pay staff and not everything else. And he said, Hannah, I can't keep doing this. Like, I just can't do this anymore. Like, this is just getting too much. And I was like, this is not what I want. Like, this is not, and like, I moved to Cardiff as well, like months before, and I was traveling in, and I was just like, no, like, sometimes you just need to stop. So I then called the staff. I said, like, we're not opening anymore. You'll be paid all of your like holiday pay and whatever, but like, no, this is not for me anymore. And it was really hard. Like, that was so hard. I know, like, one of them in particular was really, really disappointed and like maybe a bit like angry, but I couldn't have done it any other way. Like, I just had to do it my way. So yeah, and then I closed, and we've been closed for a month, and I already feel so much better. So I'm just sort of letting the dust settle. There's restaurants now that want Bowla, and I'm just like trying to figure all that out. There's like a few that have come to us, and we've got a huge trade show next month, which I need to work hard on, and that's going to be the last piece of research. I've decided that's going to be the last piece of research, like talking to buyers and talking to different restaurants at this trade show, and then I'm going to go into hibernation for a bit, figure it all out, and then go back to it whenever I can, basically. I kind of want to keep shipping on the site, so I'm looking for a job at the moment because I need money, but I want a job that I enjoy and I have some capacity, because obviously, like, my dad spent 10 years working on the side. I don't see why I can't do that. But they don't like to hear about that, so I'm trying to doing interviews and being like, oh, yeah, like, I don't know. So.
But I think that's really good. That really, I can see the passion like in you when you're talking, and like sometimes in life, I think you have to press the brake and then figure it out. Yeah, you step back a little bit and then try to figure out how you wanna move forward. I think it's really good that you've done it, because I've seen some people who would be stubborn in what they're doing, and then even when they're facing challenges like burnout, but they still want to continue. Yeah. And then that's my really getting even into worse states for them. But it's really good that you've managed to put a brake on it and trying to figure it out. I'm sure that the things you will have a clear vision what to do next.
And sometimes they say the strength or the resilience is actually in knowing when to stop. It's not necessarily in the continuing of the journey, right? And for you, it's not the end. It's actually just more and a different version of Bowla in this next phase, which is really exciting. And for us, we look forward to seeing what that looks like as well. I think probably this sounds more like the commercial side of it, not necessarily the shopfront side of it, which is probably going to open up a lot more doors and opportunity for you as well. But I wanted to speak a little bit around what you've seen as the potential for the online side of the business, because you've done the physical shop front high street style. Now you've also done partly online, because you mentioned Deliveroo and also an online shop. So for you, how has that worked, and where do you see the opportunities?
Yeah. So obviously, like from what I've learned, like the physical having a physical storefront and having an online shop, they like feed each other. Like they're very like interchangeable. So most of our sales were in person, either in the shop or through like events catering. That was like a easier hit, but equally like the kind of steady like small bit on the side that really helped was the online like delivery apps. Like they were really useful because you can access people within a 2-mile radius, which is like crazy. That's like the students who were hungover on a Saturday morning. So yeah, like that was really good. Like the Deliveroo, Uber Eats and stuff, like it can be quite tricky because you've got to basically pay for ads to get sales. Like that is an unfortunate reality that you do, particularly when you're new and unknown. Like you do need the people who are willing to try new things, but once you build up that reputation, like it is good. And they've got a lot of like incentives that you wouldn't necessarily think of having as a small business. So you can do like different deals and stuff, and have like different days where you have like offers and stuff. Try not to do too many of them because they do cost money. Like it does add up, and there were even months actually where we owed them money, and it was like, oh, that's a bit annoying.
So these corporates from Amazon,
I didn't know about that, and then it was like, you are in debt, and I was like oh, I've made sales. But yeah, like managing that can be quite difficult. You do need to keep one eye on that if you are going to have the delivery apps. But equally, it is more people who get to try you, and if they've tried you at home, then they walk past your shop, they're more likely to come in. So like it's kind of like weighing up, like, or I see it kind of as like a marketing expense, like the delivery apps. That's kind of how I saw it, as having a platform where your logo is on, another platform where your logo is on in the area which promotes you and whatever. And I think it also adds a little bit more like credibility if you're on the delivery apps. For some reason in my mind, it's just credibility as well. Yeah, so that was that. We probably maybe like a third of our sales was on the delivery apps. The online shop was tricky because that was like a whole new thing. That was like a different thing again. Like that was almost completely different because we only sold bread on this. We only did bread postals. So it was like some of the TikToks that we put out were just promoting the bread postal boxes. But what I loved about that was that you could access anyone in the UK. Like that was fantastic. So like literally I've got a list of like obviously on my click and drop, my Royal Mail click and drop, and it's like Manchester, Leeds, Edinburgh, like all places up north, weirdly, like one in West Wales. Like there's like a list of different places that isn't Swansea that people are accessing your product from. And it's so fascinating. Like I think maybe not if I could go back, but if I were to have continued, I maybe would have looked into that more and tried to build up more of like a thing on that. Maybe have like a subscription box and have like things like that. Like there's loads of like opportunities. And also, if people are buying the breads by themselves, there's also evidence to argue that they could be on supermarket shelves. Like there's no reason why the breads couldn't be sold in the supermarkets and stuff if that's what people want. So yeah, it's interesting, but I think like they go hand in hand, but equally they are their own things or their own separate things. So it is kind of like having two businesses. So yeah.
And I think I can see how sometimes it might be difficult in even managing the marketing of it, because on one hand, if you have a shop, then you want to be getting footfall. So that's a different sort of social media campaign as opposed to the boxes and just the audience for that, which is even wider. But yeah, maybe that's something again for the future, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's sort of evidence for it. But I think with my online shop, I don't think I gathered enough traction in the sense I don't think I could convince another bakery to bake them and sell them online, because I think it would just be too difficult. But yeah, like I already have an idea of like what I want to do to make things better, which is great. That's like one of the main reasons why I closed, because then I can actually reflect like that. Yeah, it's just been the best decision for me anyway. Like I know it's obviously let a lot of people down, but I was doing it for everyone else at the end, and like that's just no good. You can't do that.
Yeah, but that leads us perfectly to the next question. So, what's next for Bowla? Can you take us into your dream for the future?
Yeah, so the dream, the big dream is, so my dad, obviously he has patent on all his trademarks. So the patent and trademarks, that's kind of what makes the project valuable. because anyone can set up a bread bowl business. In fact, I was on the phone with someone who's setting up a bread bowl business last week who found me on LinkedIn and was trying to ask questions about viability and stuff. And I'm happy to help. Like, it doesn't, because he wants to get a van and go around and do stuff just in his local area, which is great. And actually, that's also research for me as well. If he gets popular, then there's no reason why we can't get popular. But that's not anyway. So what's the future? So the big dream for Bowla is we want bowlers sold in stadiums up and down the country at first. At least the first big goal is that. I've had some interest as well from smaller indie bakery / restaurants. So like there's a few bakeries in like the UK now that are bakery and food outlets where they bake everything and they're also food outlets as well. That's kind of like an emerging trend. So I'm hoping to give a few moulds to those bakeries if they want to have like full creative freedom over it. They wouldn't even be like operating under our like branding or anything. It would just be they'd be selling bowlers and making money from it. Like I've had one or two express interest and I'm trying to pursue that because that's passive. Then if we just take like a couple of pence per sale, that's like passive like sort of income, and then we just be responsible for the molds. So like, the bigger picture is Bowla is we license the mould to other bakeries that feed into their own channels rather than us owning shops. Like that's like the biggest. So you can see that like what I was doing is the complete opposite of what I want to do. So that's like the bottom line. Like what I actually want to do is like nothing to do. So that was hard. But and then eventually, if there's scope for it, like they're sold in bakeries and they're sold maybe even in supermarkets and people fill them at home, because that was something that people were doing in the shop. They were buying the breads in the shop and they were expensive in the shop. And they were like £2. I think the £2.62 for 5 for bread. Like that's quite expensive for bread, isn't it? And people were buying them. So hopefully if we can make them a bit cheaper, that would be nice. But yeah, there's all different like settings. But I would like small business to be able to make money from them as well and to have the full creative freedom, whereas like on a larger scale it would have to be controlled. They'd have to be like, following the recipes that are like, whatever under our branding. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
One thing that's been on my mind quite a bit is the word passion, because sometimes people say passion is overrated, right? Like it's just about making money. But then I feel like you've shown the exact opposite of that. Actually, the importance of having passion in what you do, and that actually being the thing that carries you forward, especially when there is challenges and turbulence and all of that, which is inevitable in business.
Exactly, yeah. And the perseverance. I think I like how you, even in your dreams, like you know where you want to go, and you have a goal, and I think nothing will stop you. That's what I like about you. I'm sure that we will see Bowla in supermarket. It doesn't have to be Aldi.
It doesn't have to be Aldi.
I think we'll see what happens. Like it's hard because like I didn't actually take a wage from that business like even once. Like I had 2 freelance jobs on the side. Like on a personal level like that, it's been really difficult. So now like it's not like I need more experience, but I do kind of want like a different experience just to kind of like level me off a bit. But I also need money as well. Like it's hard, but like there's 2 routes. I'm applying for jobs at the moment, and I said earlier like it's not going very well, to be honest. Like, well, it's going okay, but it's not. But equally, like there's other opportunities where I could probably just keep making money, like from doing speaking gigs and doing like other things, and keep freelancing and maybe trying to do a bit of that. Like there's kind of 2 options for me, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think definitely that's encouraging. I think as an entrepreneur, like first of all, you have to diversify your income, and then also at the same time, you have to keep yourself going. I think for the business, and most entrepreneurs would have a second job. Even when you start making money from Bowla, you will still maybe try to have side hustles as well. So it's just normal. I think that's the best thing to do. You need to have some income every month, and then you at the same time you can run your business, think about your business. But I think I would definitely encourage you to do that, and I'm sure that you will get something.
It is rare because like I was lucky. Like I was lucky that my family were okay with me living at home, and like the dynamic was like you don't pay rent because you're doing something for me. Like that and for yourself, but like that was a very unique setup that other people don't have. And obviously I'm very lucky to have been able to go full time for 3 years.
Yeah.
Whereas now I think I want to do it part-time for a bit and like just sort of establish myself even further than I already have. So
good.
Right. So I think we'll go into our quick fire round, which is 3 snappy questions and also snappy responses
Okay.
from you. First one being, what's one thing you wish you learned sooner in business?
One thing I wish I did sooner. The importance of cash flow. Yeah. The importance of cash flow and how it can like take you down, like if you don't have it, like
Cash is king.
yeah.
100%.
And what's something uniquely Welsh that's shaped you or Bowla?
Uniquely Welsh. So I would say like how like with so obviously our origin story came from the fact that my dad told a lie about a Welsh story about Welsh lamb cow, and Welsh lamb cow ended up being what we sold, and it was our most popular filling in the shop was Welsh lamb cow, ironically, or maybe not so much. But how when we opened, we had as much, we were using a Welsh supplier because that's all we knew, and how important that ended up being to our customers. I didn't know that before we opened, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, where are your ingredients from? Where's your fillings from? Where's your butter, cheese, all these things, and I was like, oh, they're Welsh, and they're like, oh, and I started advertising that, like, they're Welsh, Welsh lamb cow, Welsh cheese, Welsh, and like that ended up being like really important to locals and also to tourists, like that. So like that has shaped it. It's like, okay, yeah, like this, the people are very Welsh. People like Welsh things in Wales.
Wow. Do you think is Welsh having a Welsh brand associated with quality?
Yeah.
Good.
I think so.
No, definitely. Now we're not going into quick fire, but that's actually it's a big thing, definitely.
Yeah.
So, if you had the magic wand, what's one thing that you would want to change for the better for small businesses in Wales?
God, there's loads of things. One thing. I don't know how this is possible, but like having some kind of like, I say, so for us, staff costs were the highest. So maybe having some kind of scheme where like they could help with staff costs, at least like initially. I don't know if there is a scheme, but like more encouragement of like, or more help in like delegating for small business, because like there was a point where I was doing all the finance, all the marketing, all these things, like it's so hard to delegate, particularly in the beginning. Like you just can't afford to. You just can't, like, just having more schemes and things like that to encourage it, and maybe betterly advertise if there are schemes that already exist.
Yeah, I think even last time in the second episode. No, not second episode, but in the last episode, we were speaking quite a bit about, especially the cost of living now, even like energy bills, all of that, right? It's a big upfront sort of ask from small businesses who are often just doing it as solo entrepreneurs. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you. I think that's what we actually spoke about last time. I think there's definitely a need for better support for small entrepreneurs because they're hardworking, they're giving their all, but most of the time they don't really get the right support and they're feeling alone. And most businesses, they close down within 6 months, and that's not okay.
Yeah, like even like help financially for the entrepreneurs. I didn't think of that because I didn't take a wage like at all. Like, and I had to find more. And then when money was enough to come in to pay someone, I chose to take on staff. I made that decision. Like it was, so yeah, even something like that, even just like a little reward bonus. I don't really know. Obviously, it'd be hard to manage, but let's not get to that.
But actually it's a big thing even in terms of policy. For example, some people who might be on universal credit, as soon as they start making some money from the business, they get penalized from universal credit, whereas they're not actually making money personally, it's the business. So there's a lot that's actually not quite right in terms of the system that sort of stunts people and forces people to closure as opposed to them being able to continue onwards. So yeah, that whole financial bit.
I think that could be a good policy. Like someone who is a job seeker on GSA, instead of being at home doing nothing, why not working for a small business, but you're still being paid your universal credit, but at the same time you get work experience, and then once the business expand, then you have a future job. That would work. I think
it helps both ways. The individual level, but also businesses. Yeah,
I think it's something that we should definitely take to the politicians.
Like we said, magic wand. Prime Minister or whatever. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's been lovely to have you. I think you've shared, I think a lot of listeners will be happy to hear from your experience. And if they would like to visit you or come across your product, where they should go to.
Yeah, so at the moment we're not selling at all, but I am still active on LinkedIn and Bowla's Instagram, Bowla social media channels. They're kind of just sitting there at the moment, but I am going to figure out where I'm going soon and hopefully go with it.
Yeah, we'll link it in the description.
Yes.
Yeah, fabulous.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thanks,
no problem.
Hannah.
Thank you.
So we had Hannah, who was a very good guest. I was very impressed by what she had to share with us. What were your take on it?
I think for me, one thing that really shone through was just the passion that she has for her business, right? Which is also her father's passion that's sort of filtered in through her, right? Often I think, especially now with young people, you hear a lot about like passion is overrated, especially about getting into business, right? People sometimes focus more on the money side of things, which actually is a long game. What sustains you and the energy that you put into things is that passion. It's what carries you forward, right? And she's really just the epitome of that example of passion will carry you forward in the challenges that you might face during your journey as an entrepreneur, really. So yeah, for me, I think that was the main thing. What about you?
Yeah, I agree with you. And for me, I would say is her ability to adapt. I think I've seen, like, from what she said, it looks like she faced a lot of challenges, but time and time again, she managed to adapt to the situation and change the direction of the business. And it shows that ability to be resilient and solution driven, and it's very very pleasant to see in a young person. And sometimes she might feel a little bit unsettled or not sure about what she's doing, but the most important thing is to keep on going, because that's the only way. And as an entrepreneur, you might be feeling a little bit lonely, but then you have to find the right network, the right people to surround yourself with. It looks like she has a good family, people around her who are supportive, able to support her. Her dad, who is there to support her, and I'm very impressed about the settings and her ability to keep on looking for different ways to make her business work.
Yeah, definitely. And I think even when she was talking about how she had to literally dig out the foundation of her shop initially, often entrepreneurship, especially now in the age of social media, entrepreneurship sometimes is really romanticized, right? Where people think it's one thing or it's portrayed as one thing because social media, people pick and choose what to show, right? But in reality, it requires that grit and it requires that ability to be able to be what you need to be. You know, one day you can be, again, your own construction man. You could be making teas for people. You could be doing the dishes. You know, you could be doing everything all in one, right? And sometimes I feel like that's not really shown or portrayed in media or social media as well. So I just liked how she brought that out, which is something that I think other people, especially those that are considering going into entrepreneurship, have to consider. And if really that's something that they want to commit to, because that's needed.
So one last thing I think that stood out for me was the last question that you actually asked, if she had a magic stick, what would she change in terms of small businesses in Wales? And her response was around support for small businesses, and that is the reality of a lot of people, like that resonated with me, and a lot of service users that are coming to us, is that support at the beginning of the journey. They need that support to make it easier for them, because they work hard, but most of the time they give up within 6 months because they cannot just cope. And something has to be done. There has to be more support. I think it has to be a solution that brings together government. As we said in the last episode of our podcast, government, local authorities, landlords and agencies, WP, to come together to find a solution where we not only support small businesses at the start of the journey, but also job seekers. If we have a lot of people who are on job seekers allowances, but who would like to work, afraid of working more than 16 hours a week, for example, because they feel like they will lose their allowances, I think we need to have a system that is rewarding, not punitive. I think right now we have a system that is punishing people instead of supporting them, being like nurturing them, helping them to get on the job market. So that's one thing that I feel like to change.
100%. And yeah, I think what we've seen even from the last episode and this one, I think we're tending to go sometimes into the policy side of things or politics. But in reality, it's because everything is all connected. And unfortunately, I feel with policymakers today, it's dealing with issues in isolation. They're dealing with the welfare crisis on its own. Again, what we've said as a solution here, just the three of us, even with Hannah, was bringing together business, welfare. We need more representation in our politics as well as just civil service as well, where often it's people who've got experience within that particular space only, but not necessarily the diversity of jobs or experiences that are out there, one of which is a big one, which is business, right? So for people to be making decisions on an issue, there has to be some sort of engagement or experience with that issue. And I think that's what maybe we're lacking at the moment. But on a more jovial or positive note, I loved the mention, which came, only subtly really, about the Welsh identity and the strength of the Welsh brand, right? Proudly
Yes.
Welsh, made in Wales, right? And I think often we don't actually sing our own praises enough here in Wales, right? Where, like you rightly mentioned earlier, it's about the quality, right? Welshness is associated with quality, but we sometimes probably don't even leverage on that brand enough. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I was really, really pleased to hear from her when she said that, yeah, like made in Wales was associated with quality. And that's something that I've heard a lot, even in England. Like a lot of people would want to buy something that comes from Wales, that been made in Wales, because they believe that it's been done with pride and passion, and that's where the quality is coming from. So yeah, I think it's something that a lot of people, when they create the product, they forget about mentioning that it's been made in Wales, because that actually would bring more attention, and it will make people want to buy it more. So it's something that we should all be proud of. And then also for local people, that even while we're here, we want to encourage people to buy local, to be proud about what is being made in Wales, and that's how we are building a big nation. Buy local, support local, because we are supporting these hardworking entrepreneurs who are creating amazing products. They're creating jobs, and they're innovating, they're finding solutions for our communities.
Well, there's no better note to end on than that. So, to our listeners, thank you for listening to this episode of Small Business Voices Wales. Do get in touch if there's any topic that you'd want us to discuss, or if you've got any entrepreneurs in your area or just small businesses that you'd love to see platformed or share their journey and their story, then tag them below.
And if you have your own strong opinion on small businesses, we would like to have you as a guest.
So till next time.
Thank you from Frank.
Deal from Kim. Bye.
Talking about